you can't just love one aspect of it. You get a lot of people in this industry that you hear this all the time, which is I love dogs, but I'm not so fond of people. And
Yeah.
so and I say to them all the time, yes, but it is a service business.
The
People,
dogs are not going to pay you bills.
well, and those are the people that you deal with,
Yeah.
and people give so much value to great customer service,
Mm,
um, and
mm,
especially in the pet industry and the service side,
mm.
creating real manageable expectations on what you can deliver and how you're going to deliver it is everything. I'll tell you this last little anecdote. I've gone into many condos and everyone's seen the hotels and condos and businesses all going after pet parents very
Wow.
aggressively,
Wow.
uh, trying to attract them. And you go into most of them and you say, okay, can you send me your pet registry? And they kind of look at you blankly.
Yeah.
And you either get like an Excel sheet with like 4 names on it. Okay, show me your policy sheet that not only talks about what not to do, but
Yeah.
the pro policy part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Then show me your program where you're training staff to deal with pets in a
Mm,
positive
mm.
and wellness
Definitely. Yeah.
environment.
Mm,
And I think that's where sort of the next part is saying, hey, we see all this happening. And then for people in the service industry or the retail industry, I think the pet parent has changed dramatically on what they're looking for and what the demand of what they consider to be.
yeah.
Uh, I think wellness and enrichment is a massive part of how pet parents are looking at experiences.
Yeah.
I think people now want to travel and take their dogs wherever they go. You're seeing that with what Airbnb and VRBO and hotels. They're obviously all seeing the same data that they're trying to attract these people, because it used to be when I was younger, your brother or your uncle or your friend or your neighbor would watch your
Yeah.
dog for you. That's not the
Yeah.
case anymore. But
Yeah.
people also want their dog, who they now look as a full circle member of the family, to have a tactile experience the same as them.
Hey guys, before I start the podcast, a quick introduction. My name is Warnith and I'm the founder of Pet Excel Marketing. Pet Excel Marketing is a marketing agency that specifically works with pet businesses. Over the years, we have worked with pet food brand, pet relocation businesses, pet SaaS companies, pet clothing brand, cat food businesses, dog grooming services, and many other product and service-based pet businesses globally. Our services includes everything from creating graphics to running your ad campaign. Not only that, we have built amazing websites and apps for pet businesses. So if you have a pet business and would like us to help grow it, click on the first link in the description to book a call with our team. Now enjoy the podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pet Brand Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the stories, strategies, and successes behind the world's most innovative pet businesses. I'm your host Warneth, and today we are joined by someone who truly lives and breathes the pet industry. So, with over 30 years of experience across retail, product development, behavior consulting, and entrepreneurship, Matthew Curtis is the visionary behind Republic of Dog, Pet Propel Business Consulting, and PAS Approved. So, whether you're a solo pet entrepreneur, a scaling business owner, or just curious about what's driving the future of the pet industry, this episode is packed with insight you don't want to miss. So, let's jump right in. Matthew, thank you so much for being a part of the Brand Podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Great, great, great. Um, so yeah, I mean, like to start from the beginning, to kick things off, I would love to dive into your personal journey. Like you have founded multiple successful venture in the pet space. What inspired you to step into the pet industry? And like how did it evolve into Republic of Dog, Pet Propel, Business Consulting, and PAS approved?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I've been in this space now for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I started almost by accident. I was going to be going to film school in New York.
Okay.
And a friend of mine who was in advertising, we wanted to start a small business before we went. I had grown up with dogs my whole life. And he had lived up in the Yukon for a long time and had a whole bunch of dogs up there. So this was obviously before dog walking, any of those services were big. And we sort of decided to start a very small dog walking business
Okay.
as a way to just basically be outdoors, be with dogs, make a little money before we left.
Yeah.
And his background was in advertising. So we kind of pretended that we were a big company and sort of had fun with it. And had all these crazy posters like you because your dog can't get a gym membership and all of this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And it just sort of took off. And when we started, it was much more of a luxury service. The clientele it was more people who kind of had the means to do it, where now that service is much more an essential service that people look for right out of the gates. So it kind of exploded on us, and we sort of 6 months in sort of had to decide whether or not we should shut it down and kind of go on our way. And we decided to try it for 6 more months. And suddenly we are hiring employees, and we
Wow.
really enjoyed the industry, and we met a lot of great people early on in the industry who helped guide us
Wow.
and sort of took off from there. And so my journey started in the pet service business. So we were doing dog walking, and then we eventually got into daycare locations and boarding facilities, and then got into retail and grooming, and grew those into two separate companies.
Mhm.
And then obviously the pet world exploded, where more people were having pets, more buildings and so forth were letting pets in. And then as we got close to 2019, I was looking to move out and was getting much more interested in the consulting business. I had a lot of people who were new to the industry or starting the industry who would be coming to me and asking for advice and asking for help as they were starting their businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when COVID happened, and you had obviously so many businesses trying to pivot and figure out how to navigate the landscape. And so I started to work with companies sort of informally and kind of helping them, which then sort of birthed Pet Propel, which the industry itself is so unique and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
different than most other industries. And there's a lot of solo owners.
Hmm.
And so they don't have a lot of help or a lot of people to go to for advice or how to kind of solve problems.
Navigate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially during COVID, where at least in Canada, it was sort of every other day there was a closure, an opening, and closure, and on top of it, you had this massive explosion of people adopting and buying pets. And so the landscape of who the client was and what they were looking for changed at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I found for myself, I really enjoyed working with small business owners. I'd kind of gone through the whole process. I say to all of them when I start is, every mistake you've made, I've already made. That's why you think I have the answers. And just the idea of seeing people kind of thrive and also feel the relief of having someone to talk to help
Yeah.
navigate it, especially in the service side, because the service side of the industry, it's an emotional service, which is different than any other kind of service. And the room for error is very low. And
Hmm.
so there's
Hmm.
a very sort of tense tightrope you have to run a successful business.
Hmm.
And then for Republic of Dog is I had started to work in 2019 with condominiums who were looking to sort of provide pet services and amenities to their residents as it was growing. And then as COVID went through, that just exploded.
Wow.
And
Hmm.
in Ontario, Canada, where I am, during COVID, we had the most amount of cranes building condos and high-rise residences anywhere in the world. And they were all trying to attract these pet parents, because pet parents tend to be a stickier clientele. They tend to be looking for certain amenities and certain things that would be positive for their dog's wellness and experience.
Hmm.
And so I started working with them not only on the service side, but also more importantly on the back end, which is the policies, the registry, the training of the staff, sort of trying to create a 360-degree environment for dogs
Wow.
that was not only good for the dog's wellness, but
Hmm.
also spoke to the needs of the pet parent. And obviously, being in the background working with pet parents for 25 years, I found there was a disconnect between what the condos thought that they were looking for and what they were actually looking for.
Yeah.
So that was sort of what took me into that. And then Republic of Dog is just working in that space of creating better solutions for the dog ecosystem,
Hmm.
whether it's hotels, condos, pet services, or the urban community as a whole.
Mhm. And what about the PALS approved?
So PALS Approved is the digital management software that we built for
Wow.
hotels and condos. It has it's a great product for both the management side and the parent side. It has four main functions. It has obviously the registry and protocols and policies approval, which obviously is important for the buildings for liability. Because the thing that nobody talks about for pet management in hotels and condos is even if you have 35% of pet owners, you still have 65% of non-pet owners. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you have to create this kind of harmonious
yeah.
existence. You don't want to be known as the place that, non-pet owners don't want to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we have sort of the front end, which is the registry, and we have an assessment of the dog's personality, and as well, we have preferred partner network for amenities for services, as well. There's a community aspect so that the building or the hotel themselves can connect directly with the pet parent, offering them programs and events and so forth like that. And then for the hotels especially is, if you go from 5% to 30% occupancy in either hotels or condos, are you training the staff? Are you doing an onboarding process that sort of matches the hospitality level that you're looking for? What is the experience that you go? And I think there's a lot of talk right now in the industry about what does pet friendly or dog friendly really mean? And part of what PAL's approved approach is, it's not just about putting a bed in the room or saying we have a dog spa in our condo. It's a full experience.
It's a lifestyle, yeah.
Yeah, because the pet population and the pet parents, that number keeps growing exponentially every year. And the big change during COVID is you had the highest amount of non-traditional pet parents adopt or purchase a dog. That generally is generational, meaning if you had a dog as a kid, the chances are so much. And so now you have this whole new ecosystem of dog parents or pet parents that never would have had a pet except for this kind of unique, experience that happened.
Yeah, yeah. And since you have spent, over 30 years in the industry, what do you think, like, what has changed the most? Like, what trend do you see shaping the future in the pet industry?
I think that there's sort of the technological changes that are happening right now with AI and so forth. But if you're talking, I think the pet parent has changed dramatically on what they're looking for and what the demand of what they consider to be.
Yeah.
I think wellness and enrichment is a massive part of how pet parents are looking at experiences.
Yeah.
I think people now want to travel and take their dogs wherever they go. You're seeing that with what Airbnb and VRBO and hotels. They're obviously all seeing the same data that they're trying to attract these people, because it used to be when I was younger, your brother or your uncle or your friend or your neighbor would watch your dog for you. That's not the case anymore. But people also want their dog, who they now look as a full circle member of the family, to have a tactile experience the same as them. And so I think from that it's changed. I think the consumer is much more educated than ever before in all aspects, from behavior to wellness to products. And I think the internet has changed the reach of how people can go after those clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking more about the business building and in launching and scaling a pet brand, let's shift gears to the entrepreneurial side. Like, starting a pet business today is exciting, but it's also full of pitfalls that you're talking about. What do you think, what common mistakes do you see new pet entrepreneurs making, and how can they avoid them?
Obviously the sectors are different. I'll speak specifically to the service side first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The service side, I think a couple things that have made it trickier is that there are more people who have entered the space. There are more digital options for services, like apps like the Rovers and the WAG and all of that, even on the training side. I think there is more competitive nature for the same services being presented.
Yeah.
And I think just from an entrepreneurship side, I think people still aren't asking the very basic questions, which is, what do I do differently than anybody else? What am I offering? And who is my ideal client? And I think just on that basic level, there's a belief that through social media only that you can sort of solve those problems. But one of the other big changes in COVID is that everybody went digital, right? And so everybody went online. And so getting to those clients and understanding A, how to get to the clients, B,
Hmm.
how to keep the clients, and
Hmm.
how to then provide a service that distinguishes you from the other people doing, because in the service side, the services themselves are very similar.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you differentiate yourself in a space that's become much more competitive
Hmm.
and the clientele has become much more discerning on what they may choose?
Yeah, yeah. So like what would you recommend someone who's getting into the pet industry? How do they create their USP?
I think first understanding the landscape, understanding why they're getting in. It's
Hmm.
it's much harder than they think it's going to be.
Okay.
I think
Hmm.
having a plan of why they want to do it. I think it's like all entrepreneurship. You have to love it. You can't just love one aspect of it. You get a lot of people in this industry that you hear this all the time, which is I love dogs, but I'm not so fond of people. And
Yeah.
so and I say to them all the time, yes, but it is a service business.
The
People
dogs are not going to pay pay your bills.
well, and those are the people that you deal with,
Yeah.
and people give so much value to great customer service,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and especially in the pet industry and the service side,
Hmm.
creating real manageable expectations on what you can deliver and how you're going to deliver it is everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who aren't very good. They're very good at one end of the spectrum, but not as much as the other.
Hmm.
And and I think people have to really think that through and make sure that they really do like those parts of the business,
Yeah.
um, because especially any business that's in the service side, it has its ups and downs. You are dealing with customers, as I said, in a very emotional kind of point of view, and the customer itself has much more choice than they've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And since like you said, before scaling, business obviously need like a strong foundation, right?
Yes.
So you work a lot on operational structure. So talking about that, what is the first system of or foundation you recommend building in any pet businesses and why?
Yeah, the SOPs are obviously huge.
Mm.
I would say for sure the onboarding process is for the pet service side is huge. Onboarding, the whole process of onboarding a client, onboarding staff, onboarding expectations for both those things colliding. I
Mhm.
think the other part of it is to have a growth plan in place. I
Okay.
always say in the service industry, is saying no is much more important than saying yes. You have to know how to say no to a client. What are the parameters that you are setting for yourself for client acquisition? Not
Mm.
all clients are good clients,
Mm.
uh, especially in the service industry, geography, what the expectation of that client, what you can deliver.
Yeah.
So many people in the pet industry take on clients that
Yeah.
they can't actually provide the service that they're looking for. So the structure isn't in place to sort of filter that out. So they're building a foundation that is not solid. And as they grow, then it really starts to fall apart. And especially, I mean, during COVID, as many people have talked about, is you had a lot of, because of the demand for dogs, you had a
Yeah.
lot of breeds and a lot of people who rescued dogs that maybe didn't have the understanding of what they were getting into or what was required. And now they're needing services because they're going back to work or whatever version of it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a much more complicated landscape for the business owner because that requires a totally different model than just, a
Mm.
dog that doesn't have maybe, certain behavioral issues or, structural issues in how they have sort of come along.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about your clientele, we all love success stories, especially the one that show transformation through strategic action, right? So can you share a story for pet business that you guys helped turn around or like scale significantly?
Yeah, I think, what's very interesting is what I have found with a few companies that I've worked with is they have been successful in spite of themselves, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And so they are having some sort of success, but they
Yeah.
can't actually scale because structurally,
Yeah.
either from the big thing in the pet service industry is how to scale up staffing, which is really difficult because the ratio of worker to dog. So in a daycare, whether it's 7 dogs to one worker, or if it's dog walking, which is 3 dogs or to 6 dogs per person,
Mm.
and to scale that up to meet demand, you have to have a structure in place. So because what a lot of them are in is they're in this constant rotation of staffing.
Okay.
I think so. The big thing that we've done is cleaned up their client acquisition silo,
Mm.
how they're acquiring clients, who they are trying to acquire, making sure they're micro targeting the understanding the demographic of who their clients are. And I'll give this example: is for a daycare or dog walking or those types of businesses.
Mm.
If you have a lot of clients that are using your service one day a week, you're now having an exponential amount of clients that you have to service that are coming on infrequently. It's harder to keep the quality of service, right? Or with something like training, a lot of training businesses, they're in the constant circle of client acquisition because it's a very short scope of time that these people use the services. So they may use, so a training
Yeah.
customer may use the service 3 or 4 times. And so
Mm.
now if you're doing classes or you're doing workshops, you have to constantly acquire clients.
Yeah.
And so most people who are in this business and can't scale is they're spending too much time operating and not enough time building the business.
Yeah.
And so part of what we have done to help people in that case is we've created a structure
Mm.
from a client acquisition to operations that have allowed them to then back up and make decisions for their business so they can look at it not from I'm crisis managing and dealing with every problem as it comes along, but
Mm.
I'm making choices based that's what's best for the business
Mm.
and have a structure in place that I can take the time to do it properly.
Wow.
Where,
Mm.
and I think in the service side, I would say that in what I would call the small to medium sized businesses,
Mm.
70% of them are still on the operation side and not on
Okay.
the ownership sort of building side.
Wow. Wow. I'm talking about marketing, like one of the biggest challenges for growing pet business today. What do you think, like, what are some of the most exciting, effective strategies you have seen pet businesses use to attract the right customers?
I think there's a lot of old school marketing that still works quite effectively.
Okay.
Uh,
Mm.
I still think direct mail still works in a lot of the industry type sort of part of it.
Mm.
I think one of the biggest things I tell all owners is what is the story that you're telling?
Yeah.
What is the tactile experience that you want the customer and their dog to have,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
How can they, from a marketing standpoint, what is it that, because it is a unique service. Like if you go get your clothes dry cleaned or you have your house cleaned, the customer sees the experience. They come home, the house is cleaned, you pick up your dry cleaning, is done. But if you're doing a pet service, the dog's going to daycare,
Yeah.
how do you, other than just posting pictures online
Yeah.
constantly,
Yeah.
we did a marketing campaign years ago where we had it. It was a mail drop, handwritten, and it sort of came from another dog in the neighborhood. Hey, I'm Charlie. I'm down the street from Benji.
Wow.
I keep going to daycare all the time, and I see that Benji doesn't get to go anywhere. We
Wow.
love, and
Yeah.
so and just a lot of boarding especially is a very tactile experience. They want to know, so the pet parent is off having a great vacation, and we had boarding facilities at farms, and they love the idea of the dog is at the farm and he's running it. And so how do you express that?
Yeah.
Because referral in the pet industry is still one of the top ways to build your customer base. So how do you create an experience where they're passing that on to the next customer,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
then from the other side is from a service part, how are you taking the unit of what you do? So if it's a dog walk, a training experience, boarding, grooming, and retail,
Mm.
and what is the function that you're satisfying? Like what is the space that you're going after?
Mm. Mm.
Is it, if it's just convenience, and ease of service that puts you with everybody else. And you'll hear, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, people say, well, I'm very good at what I do. I love what I do. But that's, everyone will say that.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the marketing part is, for me, marketing is not only just the stuff you put out from a digital marketing or traditional marketing.
Yeah.
It's the whole experience. How is the onboarding process?
Mm.
Meaning, what is the client getting on that journey? Do you have a 3-month plan as you sign up this client to make sure that client journey is solidified?
Yeah.
What are they getting in that, so that they're then going out and saying, oh my gosh, they checked in on me again, or they sent my, my dog, a birthday gift. They sent my dog just out of the blue a basket just because they knew he wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
They informed me of things that were going on, and they gave me a plan on how to fix them. It's all of those parts that make you unique. And then the other part that I think is most important in the service industry is integrating yourself within the community that you work. You are a part of that community.
Yeah.
And how do you integrate yourself so you become a community-oriented service provider?
Yeah.
Not just,
any other. Yeah. And also, like, refining your niche is often, the difference between attracting clients and getting lost in the noise, right? How do you help pet entrepreneurs refine their niche and develop a marketing message that resonates?
Well, I think it's going through the who, what, why, then part of it, which is, I think you would be shocked, and I'm sure you're not shocked because you deal with clients all the time this way, is first question I ask them is, who is your ideal client? Describe them to me.
Yeah, and most of them don't know.
And most of them have no clue, right?
Yeah.
What is that demographic? So your top 20% that are using your service the most, who are they?
Yeah.
Right? How did you acquire those clients?
Mm-hmm.
What was the pathway that they came there? What is it that you're, in 30 seconds, tell me what differentiates you. Here are the 4 other competitors around you. What makes you different from a proposition than them?
Yeah.
And what are you thinking about right now that you're going to do next to increase the experience for both clientele and the pets, right?
Wow.
That you're taking care of. And 7 out of 10 times, they don't have an answer to any of those questions. So just what I say is that once you define that triangle, then every decision that you come from new client to partnership to, we want to expand into a daycare or whatever version of it is, goes through that triangle. And if it doesn't answer those core things, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Because there are a lot of great ideas. This might be a great client, but it doesn't make sense geographically. The behavioral issues of the dog, the client's expectations.
Yeah.
And without that kind of framework, you're kind of just growing on instinct. And so what I always say to clients, to owners is, how do you know when you've made a decision that's successful? And how do you know that you made a decision that's a mistake after it's happened, opposed to knowing before it's happened? And that's, to me, the main difference between success and growth in the pet service industry.
Yeah. Talking about the revenue, the money side of things, many pet businesses undercharge their services, right? How do you guide clients through pricing strategy without losing the customers?
I mean, there's the basic parts of it, which is understanding where the market is.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I was just saying, is you have to know who your ideal client is, because that demographic will also dictate price.
Yeah.
What are you offering within that? And then the big thing that nobody has, most people don't think about is, what is your cost per doing that service? And generally what people don't look at is every single cost is all based. So very simply, if you're a dog walking or a daycare, so every service that you do, whatever you're charging, how much percentage is going to your costs, from insurance to rent to staffing to all of that stuff. And a lot of people price themselves either into a corner where you either have to say, look, your costs are too high because you can't charge what would make sense to have a viable business.
Yeah.
It also is, what is the strategy that you're trying to do? Like, meaning, where are you in the process? Are you trying to build? Are you trying to maintain? Are you trying to set it up for sale, which
Yeah.
is another big one that people
Mm,
don't
mm,
really know how to kind of set it up properly.
mm.
And then, um, and a lot of people, especially people who have higher rates than what I would call the demographic average where they are,
Hmm.
they always say, well, I provide a better service, but can't really quantify what that is. And I always say, look, you have to quantify that not to the client in expression, meaning like when you're selling your business, but in experience. Every step of the way, that has to feel like what they're paying for.
Wow.
And I'll use this example to tie into another business. So with the condos, when I'm talking to condo developers and say they want a pet service company to come in there and do dog walking for their building,
Hmm.
the condo developers also all say, okay, well, we want 10% of whatever they charge. And then we also want you to give a 10% discount to our residents. And
Okay.
I always say the same thing. That's a complete fundamental non-understanding of pet parents. Nobody is going to send their family member to a service because they get 10% off,
Yeah.
because it's an emotional proposition.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they would much rather pay the full amount if they get peace of mind. They feel like it's the service that is best for their dog.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with pricing. Is people will pay a premium for the services as long as you can deliver a constant uh, um,
Yeah.
promise on what you have set as your expectations. And I think a lot of people don't understand that has to be consistent and
Hmm.
ongoing,
Hmm.
and and constantly getting better, because I always say the same thing. Everyone around you is the good companies are doing the same thing. So they're getting better as well. And
Yeah.
so you can't just sit on your old. And I think a lot of people found that in post COVID, where maybe they weren't as aggressive or constantly trying to improve their businesses. And then after COVID, when you had so much more competition, they weren't prepared for some of the new people coming in who were hungry to build their businesses,
Yeah.
and were constantly pushing up the quality.
Yeah, yeah. And also like not all the revenue streams like are obvious for the pet business owner. So like, what do you think, like are there any some overlooked revenue streams or services pet brands can explore to boost their profitability? Profitability.
I, I'm a big believer in this landscape right now. Strategic partnerships are huge.
Okay.
So, and I'll give an example. So, a daycare company partners with a training company.
Okay. Mm.
So, because I believe you want to create a business if you can, especially if you have daycare and boarding, you want to create a business where a client can get all of the services from one place. Because the minute they go somewhere else for it,
Yeah.
they could then go and say, hey, well, they also have a dog walking service, and so I'll move my dog over there.
Yeah.
But I think strategic partnerships are a way for companies not to spend a lot of money
Mm.
and create another flow for clients, but also brings in new clients, but also creates a value proposition. So if you're a daycare and you have a
Mm.
dog that maybe is having issues in that daycare, you have a training company you're partnering with who can come in, work with
Mm.
that dog, work with the pet parent, come up
Mm.
with solutions for that dog either at home but as well in the daycare. So
Mm.
you are then adding that extra value to the client experience, where before
Mm.
you might have to just say, hey, this isn't working out. So
Yeah.
I think the other one is retail and service providers. That's another strategic partnership that can make sense.
Mm.
Um, I think add-ons, especially, is a big one now in the service industry. So daycare is adding adventure walks to their businesses. Dog walking companies offering overnight experiences on top of it. So
Yeah.
just adding on services that the structure that you have can provide, that doesn't have a lot of cost
Yeah.
additive, is the big one. But partnerships for sure in this landscape, I think strategic partnerships are definitely a way to go,
Mm.
and not enough people are really doing it.
Mhm. Last question from my end, Matthew. What do you think? What do you think is the future of this urbanization? Pet inclusivity is becoming like, it's becoming more like a necessity, right? What do you think? Like, what is the future of it? Like how can brands be prepared to be part of this future?
of pet inclusivity.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's I think it will be a part of our communities in general, meaning you're already seeing it happening where
Mm.
pets are going to be integrated into our urban lives
Mm.
everywhere. You're going to be able to take them to the stores, you're going to be able to take them on the subway, you'll be able to take them on the train. And so um, whatever you're doing within the industry, how can you find a way to do what your piece would be? And right now, there's nothing stopping any dog walking company in North America from going and trying to create a strategic partnership with a condo
Yeah.
and saying, I can offer your residents and also making sure that you're creating a program that's specifically for dogs that would live in condos because I'll just give this quick example is condos tend to be in urban areas. They tend to
Mm.
have less green space near them. There's a lot more noise and sound around, so there's issues with all of that.
Yeah.
um, I think people I think it's not as simple as just saying how can they join. I
Mm.
think it's also changing the way the customer's mindset is. So how do you, if you don't understand where it's going and where the customer, how the customer looks at their dog or their cat or whatever version of it is in their ecosystem, how
Mm.
can you be providing them the next style service?
Yeah.
Uh, when you have this increased amount of pet population, and in Toronto in 2019, so this is before COVID, the city released a massive study saying that the city itself was not ready for the population explosion, and that was before COVID even happened.
Oh.
And so, how can you provide, as a business, the best way to grow is to provide a solution to a problem that exists or one that you can see coming,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And here's the other one that I always use for a simple one is um, with people having more pets and dogs, there are a lot of companies and businesses that do either make their workers travel a lot, work long hours. Why are you not going to law firms and hospitals and all of this and offering your services?
Mm.
Because the ecosystem that's happening, meaning when I started 25 years ago, it was much more rare to see a dog in a condo in an apartment building. And if it was a very specific breed. And so I think there'll be three things that you'll see change. I think there'll be pet concierge, someone in charge of pet concierge at most hotels within 10 years.
Wow.
I think I think cities will start having signage and
Mm.
integration within the urban environment for pets and dogs.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I think, and what I'm hoping is there'll be a much more comprehensive programming for new pet owners to help make their dog and their lives more successful within an urban environment.
Mm.
And whether that's through service providers, through training partners, and integrated policies within residents and so forth. I think it will be mandated eventually that
Wow.
there has to be certain amenities in condos and hotels.
Mm.
And you're
Mm.
seeing that already. I mean, everyone goes to the airport now. You're seeing the relief areas and all of that. I think it's just going to be fully integrated within how we
Mm.
see things.
Mm. There will be new policies, government policies as well. To yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
I think there's going to be a massive change, and I'll tell you this last little anecdote. I've gone into many condos, and everyone's seen the hotels and condos and businesses all kind of going after pet parents very
Wow.
aggressively,
Wow.
trying to attract them. And you go into most of them and you say, okay, can you send me your pet registry? And they kind of look at you blankly.
Yeah.
And you either get like an Excel sheet with like 4 names on it. Okay, show me your policy sheet that not only talks about what not to do, but
Yeah.
the pro policy part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Then show me your program where you're training staff to deal with pets in a
Mm.
positive
Mm.
and wellness
Definitely. Yeah.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where sort of the next part is saying, hey, we see all this happening, and then for people in the service industry or the retail industry, how can you solve problems for them? Because this is just going to keep increasing.
Yeah.
And I think companies that I'm seeing that are seeing it already or are already moving ahead of the crowd. And then obviously the last part is, AI now is becoming highly integrated into the industry, and it's going to continue, which will change the landscape, especially for the smaller and medium-sized businesses.
Definitely, definitely. Love the conversation. And guys, that's bring us to the end of today's episode of the Pet Brand Podcast. Thank you so much, Matthew, first of all, for taking your time and for this podcast.
It was great to talk to you, and then thanks for having me.
From product development to pet behavior to coaching the next generation of pet entrepreneurs, your journey is nothing short of inspiring. To all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with fellow pet entrepreneurs who could use a little extra momentum. I'm Varnit, and I will catch you in the next video. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and keep making the pet world a better place.